Thank you for joining us today. Murdad, my first question is for you. Could you tell us about the BSR?
Yes, Building Safety Regulation started from 2023, but people actually engaged over the last year, so they started realizing how it works. Actually, the very first line of consultants got involved in that, the actual building control, so everything changed in terms of check-in process. I remember like a lot of building control, they were just doing some additional trainings or courses or qualifications just to make sure they can do that. So um, very simple implication is more like higher risk building, so HRB. You need to just apply for building safety regulations is the golden kind of getaway. Just you need to apply in a different, not just for the building control, but also additional application for particularly for building BSR application. It's called. The very simple rule is just they are saying from external floor to the very top ground floor finish is going to be 18 meter. Anything more than 18 meter is going to be the threshold going for BSR. But also it could be different type of buildings too. For example, hospitals, or it could be like very important buildings. So you might actually, or very large, huge kind of retrofitting. It could be part of BSR, as far as it might be involved with like maybe like facade renovation, or it could be like fire safety regulation involved in that. The whole point of BSR is to make sure what you're submitting as a document is going to be like standalone and self-explanatory for whoever just doing the maintenance or using operation or checking process. Say, as a structure engineer, if I'm designing like something very simple but still part of BSR application, I need to explain what's the design philosophy of the existing building and what I'm doing and how I'm avoiding undermining the existing structure. So it has to be all written and explained for like someone completely outside of the project, understandable and easy to follow. I think that's the whole philosophy of BSR, making sure this is obviously complying with the regulations.
Do you think it's a step in the right direction for moving forward with building work and making sure that all of the standards are hit?
Um, the whole again, the philosophy is quite very good. I would support it 100%. Because I remember like previously, especially like about 2017 or 18, you could have had actually like new build project, but still not very clear what's the maintenance regime or strategy or how the building needs to be treated, or maybe after 4 years or 3 years, someone's selling new build structure, or there's no documentation or a manual. So at some point for larger projects, or especially like public sector or like a larger management company, they had what is so-called O&M manual, but it wasn't still adequate. But now what we have with BSR application for higher risk building, it is forcing everyone to have higher level of communication, because you still need to write it down and communicate it. You have building regulation principal designer. They're asking all the questions from all the different kind of uh, disciplines like architect, engineer, mechanical engineer, structural engineer, civil engineer. All of them need to explain it and writing it down. So we have all that spreadsheet to provide these documentation. Um, but still, we are, I would say, everybody, I mean, I would say more than 60-70% of the industry is still learning. And I think we still need to develop it to make it more efficient, because I know some of them still take quite a lot of time in terms of professional time, in terms of like the submission is quite sometimes can be very stressful, because they have very specific deadlines on that. And if you're missing the deadline, it has to be stage 4 submission, for example. And if you're missing the deadline, and the next submission might be another few more months, like postpone the whole project, and you're not really allowed to start the project before having principal agreement or principal approval for that one. So this is affecting the project in terms of like a financial risk, professional risk as well. Because I might have allowed for, as a professional, I might have allowed for maybe 10 hours of work, but because of building safety regulation, I need to allow for 15 hours, which is 50% more time for me.
So, who do you think it will negatively impact, and who do you think it will positively impact?
I wouldn't say negative impact, it's more learning curve, I would say. So everybody is learning now how to deal with that. And obviously, the building safety regulators also need to improve the efficiency of the work. As a simple example, we had a very small project. It was a hospital project, and it was within BSR application, but literally the amount of structural work was quite very insignificant, I would say. Like you wouldn't even spend more than 10 hours time on the design work. But the check-in process from the other side, we had like 4 other engineers checking like the design for which is completed by like one single maybe mid-junior engineer and completed without any problem. There was a confusion from their side because obviously they didn't understand why even this is a BSR application. Apparently because this was like a 10-story building hospital attached to a single-story extension, but we were working on a small part of that single story, so they were just trying to understand what we are doing there. So why it is even part of BSR application, they were just trying to understand where are the rest of the details. So that's the whole project. There's no more details. That's what we are doing. Simply just removing a couple of like load-bearing walls and designing beam. So this is still, again, it's the learning curve, I would say. So until you're not actually running from start point to the very end point, you don't really know where are the issues. And then I'm sure this is going to be like develop and progress in the right way.
Thank you. So, my next question is for Mark. So, how have you found the new implementations? How have they affected you? Where have you noticed it most?
So we haven't done a lot of work in this sector as such because it's sort of the high level work is not a build sort of we would take on. But my understanding, as Murdo was just explaining, even if you're doing a single story extension or any work to part of a property which forms under this legislation, you have to conform to the same rules and regulations. So when it comes to things like fireproofing, fire safety, the construction, even like the architecture and the structural engineer side of it, it all has to form part of the BSR as well. I think that the sort of negative impact it will have will be on the client because of the escalating costs. And as Murdad has said, there's a lot of learning to be done, and I think the learning is being done at the client's cost because there's a lot of crossover. But I think the positive thing, and it's something that we've experienced and we're seeing now in projects that we're doing, is that building control are making everybody accountable for their input to any project. So the client has to sign documents, as does the builder, structural engineer, and the architect as well, so that everybody knows exactly what's been asked for, what's been agreed through planning, what's being built by the builder, and the structural elements are taken into consideration. Building control are then putting all of that together and then delivering that back to the client once the project's complete.